what you can't explain. It's coming back again. I can see it now, I can see it now. What you can't explain, coming back again.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Today, we are talking about the disappearance of 29-year-old Lauren Dumolo, who vanished from Cape Coral, Florida in June of 2020. Now, this case was requested in the comments section a few times, and I also spoke to some friends who live in the area who also wanted me to cover it, and I went into the case not knowing really what I was getting myself into. Not only is there a potential connection to a case we've covered in the past, not only is there some weird, bizarre connection to Wade Wilson, the serial killer, but there are also several strong and possible theories about what could have happened to Lauren. But the fact is, she's still missing over 4 years later, and that's a real problem. And I can only assume that she encountered foul play at the hands of a person or people who did not ever want her to be found. Over the time I've spent looking into Lauren and her case, I've come to very much care about this young woman, and I would love to have some answers that might offer clarity about what happened to her. I know for a fact that Lauren's family would also love some answers because they have been fighting tirelessly now for years, trying to get her story in the public eye, trying to get some answers, working with the police, working with PIs, working with the public. Lauren's story is full of twists and turns, but also the details of her life paint a picture of someone who was really struggling with a lot of aspects of this world that we all inhabit. But even though her road was rocky, Lauren Dumolo seemed to hold on to enough hope and positivity to keep pushing and keep fighting. But the adversity kept coming at her, and I truly pray that this is not how Lauren's story ends, with a big question mark. She deserves better. So, without further ado, let's get into the case, but first we need to hear a word from the sponsor of today's video, Blueland. Anyone who knows me can tell you that while my ADHD brain keeps my surroundings cluttered, I never have dirty living or working spaces. It's not dirty. It's cluttered, but it's not dirty. And I'm actually kind of intense about keeping things cleaned and sanitized. However, the average cleaning products are harsh and full of chemicals. Things like laundry and dishwashing pods are just full of microplastics, and it's to the point where you have to wonder if you're doing more harm than good. With Blueland, this anxiety is unnecessary because their products are people and planet friendly. All products are free of phosphates, chlorine bleach, parabens, VOCs, ammonia, triclosan, and phthalates. They're hypoallergenic and sourced from vegan and non-GMO ingredients, and Blueland's products have no plastic waste. Or they have compostable or recyclable packaging. So obviously we know that something like the toilet is probably one of the dirtiest places in your homes. I cringe to think about it. But your toilet is way grosser than you probably ever could have imagined. In fact, it's been shown that bacteria and viruses can actually hang around in the toilet bowl even after multiple flushes. But there's an easier and a better and a more fun way, I think, to get your toilet clean. With the Blueland Sustainable Toilet Cleaning Tablets, all you have to do is drop, watch it fizz, brush, and flush. And these tablets are proven to work on a range of toilet stains, including rust, mineral deposits, limescale, and hard water. Plus, there's no single-use plastic to dirty the environment further. Also, I really love how they come in this cute little tin, and I just put it on the back of my toilet. It looks pretty, it's convenient, it's handy, it has everything. Blueland also offers dishwasher tablets, laundry tablets, and hand soap tablets. And the Blueland hand soap has been my go-to hand soap for a while now. It is so easy to just fill the beautiful glass dispenser with water, which turns the hand soap tablet into the perfectly foaming, wonderfully scented, non-drying hand cleanser that I have come to love. Even better, it's affordable. So instead of having to buy a new hand soap, and that can range from between like $5 to $15 depending on where you're buying it or what you're buying, you can just get the refillable tablets, and they start at just $2.25. And they also come in a wide variety of scents like lavender eucalyptus, which is one of my favorites, evergreen, Pacific mist, and iris agave. You can even get more savings by buying refills in bulk or setting up a subscription, which you can customize delivery dates so you never run out and you never have to run out to the store. I love Blueland. I use these products in my home and office every day, and I suggest that you check them out right now by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code, which you will see on the screen now. And doing this is going to get you 15% off your first Blueland kit. So remember, scan the QR code, click the link in the description box. You're going to get 15% off your first Blueland kit. Thank you so much to Blueland for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to the Complicit podcast, who covered Lauren's case over the course of several well-researched episodes created with the help of Lauren's family and friends, who, like I said, are desperate to find out what happened to her. The podcast really helped me go deeper than the news reports to find out more about who Lauren was, who the people in her life were, and what their dynamics were like. The podcast also gave me at least a dozen more rabbit holes to go down and get lost in, which really added a lot of context and depth to the theories that have been developed. So if you leave this video and the one that follows it wanting more, or wanting to hear more directly from the people who love Lauren and want her back, go check out the Complicit podcast. You'll find their website linked in the description box. Okay, now with all of that out of the way, let's talk about Lauren Brittany Dumolo. Born on July 14th, 1990, Lauren lived in Staten Island with her father, Paul, and her sister, Cassie. But Lauren and Cassie's mother was not in their lives at that time. Lauren's mother's name has never been publicly released. In the Complicit podcast, they call her Anne, so that's what we're going to call her here as well for continuity purposes in case anybody has listened to that podcast or will listen to it. If I gave Lauren's mother a random name, that might get confusing. We're going to keep calling her Anne. So when Paul Dumolo and Anne got divorced, Paul had been awarded full custody of their daughters because apparently Anne had been struggling with alcoholism throughout her life. Paul Dumolo has said that when the divorce and custody agreement were settled, Anne basically packed up and left New York and moved to Florida. And for the next 11 years, he, Lauren, and Cassie did not see her or hear from her at all. But Lauren and Cassie were always very close, in age and in every other way.
Look at these pictures. Two happy sisters, born 13 months apart.
It was never Cassie and Lauren. We were always Lauren and Cassie. She was my best friend from the moment I was born.
Cassie Carey's younger. Told me as kids, their relationship was what you'd expect of sisters. Hot and cold, but always love.
You know, I remember I was not a morning person growing up, and she would be responsible for waking me up for school, and we would fight. We would physically hit each other. And then we'd walk to school and we'd give each other a hug and say, okay, I love you. Have a good day.
As the older sister, Lauren Dumolo only knew a world without Cassie for 13 months. Cassie's known that world for 4 years now.
I last talked to her on June 18th of 2020. We had a phone call set up to talk the next day. I was going to help her. So I ended that call on June 18th. And then on June 19th, that phone call never came. And 4 years later, I never heard her voice again.
At some point when they were 18 and 19 years old, both Lauren and Cassie had a desire to reconnect with their mother, and they began communicating with her. Anne had remarried, and from that relationship, she'd had more children, including Lauren's half-sister Lindsay and Lauren's half-brother Jeffrey. Anne and her boyfriend Victor of 15 years lived in Cape Coral, Florida with Jeffrey, and Lindsay lived in West Palm Beach in Florida. Now, Victor is not the father of Lindsay or Jeffrey. Like I said, Anne had remarried after divorcing from Paul Dumolo, and then she had some more kids from that marriage, including Jeffrey and Lindsay. And then that marriage ended in divorce, and Anne ended up with this other guy, Victor, who was just her boyfriend. They weren't married. Now, Lauren and her sister Cassie would both eventually make their way to Florida as well, and at first, Lauren split her time between West Palm Beach and Cape Coral. But when her sister Lindsay relocated to Cape Coral in 2016, Lauren began living there full-time with Lindsay and their brother Jeffrey. Now, Lauren would move again, but this time not far. She moved into her mother's apartment on Tarpaulin Court in Cape Coral, where Anne lived with her boyfriend Victor. At the time, someone else was living with Victor and Anne. His name was Gabriel Pena, and he was not only close friends with Victor, but the two worked together at a flooring company, and they would drive to and from work together every morning. When Lauren moved into her mother's apartment, she already knew Gabriel Pena. In fact, they'd been seeing each other for a few years, but no one in Lauren's family was really aware of this fact. They've kind of kept it on the down low, and then when Lauren moved into her mother's apartment, people kind of figured out, put two and two together, because Lauren and Gabriel started sharing a room and a bed. Now, Gabriel was 14 years older than Lauren. He had been married and divorced, and he had older children from that marriage. And Lauren also had a child from a previous relationship. Lauren's daughter, Michaela, was 5 years old when Lauren would go missing in 2020, and Lauren had lost custody of Michaela shortly after she was born due to an ongoing drug problem that Lauren had battled with since her teens. According to Paul Dumolo, Lauren's father, she'd been in a car accident as a teenager that had left her with severe back pain, and in order to alleviate that back pain, doctors had prescribed Lauren a painkiller called Percocet. Now, Lauren's Percocet use eventually graduated to a daily heroin habit, which this is sadly a tale as old as time. Both Percocet and heroin are opioids. It's a class of drugs that reduce the perception of pain in the body. Opioids bind to receptors in the brain and nervous system that diminish pain signals and stimulate the brain's reward system by increasing levels of dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter. This makes an opioid highly addictive. And if someone is taking a prescribed painkiller, they will eventually develop a tolerance. And that's going to reduce the desired effect of pain relief and dopamine release. And this obviously leads to an individual taking higher doses, or it leads someone to start using something stronger, like heroin. Now, the transition from prescribed Percocet to a heroin addiction does illustrate the slippery slope of opioid dependency. And although not everyone who uses painkillers will develop an addiction, the risk does increase with prolonged use and higher doses, which is something that can be common in people who experience chronic pain, because you have to use these painkillers for longer because your pain is chronic. It's not temporary. It's not there for a few months and then you get better. It's just constantly with you. Now, Lauren was in recovery when she became pregnant with her daughter, and because of her addiction, Michaela was removed from Lauren's custody when she was born. The desire to reunite with her child led Lauren into rehab, and she was able to get Michaela back for a short time while she was participating in a family rehab program at a place called Gratitude House in West Palm Beach. Now, this was an inpatient program. It allows mothers battling drug addiction to receive treatment in safe residential settings while keeping their children with them. So basically, this arrangement allowed Lauren to live with and spend time with her daughter while also being able to participate in treatment sessions and get better. And Lauren did get better. Sadly, in 2018, though, after leaving Gratitude House and moving back to Cape Coral, Lauren relapsed, and CPS was called after Michaela was found wandering around alone while Lauren was passed out in her apartment from heroin use. By this time, Lauren and her boyfriend, Gabriel Pena, had moved out of Lauren's mother's apartment and gotten their own apartment together, just about a quarter mile away at 4927 Coronado Parkway. Now, after this horrible situation, of going to Gratitude House, getting better, having her daughter with her, and then moving with Michaela to Cape Coral into an apartment and then relapsing and getting into heroin again, passing out and having Michaela be found wandering around, obviously Lauren lost her daughter again. And Michaela's paternal grandmother in Palm Beach was granted full custody. And I guess this really made Lauren realize that she had to get her act together and get clean. She did not want to be separated from her child any longer, and she knew that she couldn't continue on as she was, or she would never get to live with Michaela again. By the time of her disappearance in 2020, Lauren had been clean for 2 years and was actively fighting to get her child back. Lauren had also become a person who meditated every single day, and she gave this new practice, this new mindfulness practice, a lot of the credit for her progress in recovery and in her move away from drug addiction. Since the car accident in her teens, Lauren had been afraid to drive, so she didn't own a car or even have a driver's license. Every morning, she would leave her apartment on Coronado Parkway and walk to Four Freedoms Park. This was a place she was very familiar with because it was right across the street from her mother Ann's apartment where Lauren had once lived. Now, Four Freedoms Park is located on 3.2 acres overlooking Bimini Basin between Coronado Parkway and Santa Barbara Boulevard. So if we look at this Google Earth image, we can see the park right here. And then directly across the street would be where Lauren's mother Ann lived with her boyfriend Victor, as well as with Lauren's brother Jeffrey, who had moved into the room that Lauren and Gabriel Pena had vacated when they'd gotten their own place. Jeffrey also worked at the same flooring company as Gabriel and Victor. And the reason I'm taking time to show you this location and kind of explain the dynamics and where everybody is living is because it will become important later on. So Lauren would walk to this park from her apartment every morning. It was like a 6-minute walk, not far. And she would sit by the water and meditate. She would practice mindfulness and try to build her inner strength. Looking at Lauren's Facebook, we can tell she was definitely into spirituality and self-betterment. In December of 2018, she posted a quote, "Nothing in life worth having comes easy. It is a process. Instant gratification is a false sense of happiness that lasts only a short amount of time, but if you put the work in and allow life's blessings to come naturally, there's a happiness inside that process that can last a lifetime. True happiness comes from within. Short-term happiness is when you seek pleasures externally." End quote. It looked like Lauren was learning to live in the moment, and even though she wasn't where she wanted to be in life, and even though her circumstances were not ideal, she was trying to be grateful. I can also tell you that even though Lauren did not have custody of her daughter, clearly Michaela meant the world to her, and she would visit and spend time with her little girl whenever she could. Lauren and Michaela went places together often with Lauren's boyfriend, Gabriel. Lauren posted pictures of Michaela's artwork and school functions. They spent holidays together, and Lauren went and watched her daughter during swim lessons, and it made me very sad. Very sad. Scrolling through these posts and seeing this beautiful little girl who absolutely was the center of her mother's universe, knowing what Michaela lost and all the memories she's missed out on with Lauren, her mother, these past 4 years. It was Michaela who Lauren focused on when she was trying to get better, and she was well on her way to regaining custody of her daughter because, like I said, she'd been clean for 2 years. But Michaela's paternal grandmother was kind of pushing back. I don't even blame her for this, I'm going to be honest. After Michaela was found wandering around, Lauren passed out from heroin. I don't blame the grandmother from being a little wary and not wanting to just, hand Michaela right back. So there was a custody battle going on, but Lauren was working very hard to become the right type of person who the court would look at and say, yes, you get another chance to prove that you can be the mother that your daughter Michaela deserves. And Lauren desperately wanted to be the mother that Michaela deserved. But then 2020 rolled around, the year that threw a curveball at everyone. Lauren had been working 2 jobs, but she lost one due to the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdown. On top of that, in the spring of 2020, Lauren began going through some tough personal issues that she shared with some of her friends and family members. I will once again return to Lauren's Facebook page because if you only went off of that, what she posted on social media, you would think that Lauren and Gabriel Pena had the most amazing and a loving relationship. You would think that Gabriel was a place that Lauren found safety and comfort in. On November 10th, 2018, Lauren posted a picture of Gabriel and her daughter, Michaela, and captioned it, quote, "The two people I love most in one picture." End quote. On November 22nd, 2018, Lauren once again posted a picture of her daughter and Gabriel and captioned it, quote, "Thankful for these two today, the loves of my life." End quote. On December 11th, 2018, Lauren posted a series of photos featuring herself and Gabriel, and the caption read, quote, "There are no words to describe how truly amazing and selfless this man is. He came into my life during one of my darkest times, and instead of judging me or giving up on me, like so many others, he believed in me, had faith in me, and loved me until I learned how to love myself. Not only did he open his heart up to me, but he also opened his heart up to my daughter and loved her as if she was his own. Michaela and I love our Gabby. Thanks for making it so easy to love and be loved. Like Michaela always says, that's my Gabby forever. It's a forever kind of love." End quote. We're going to talk, we've talked before about how I feel when people post such emotionally intense things on social media and how I don't think it necessarily reflects what's happening behind the scenes, but let's continue on before I get to that. So on January 14th, 2019, Lauren posted a picture that read, it's kind of like one of those meme pictures, somebody else posts it and then you just repost it, but the picture itself read, quote, "I love that rush when he folds me into his arms and I can let out a sigh of relief knowing I'm safe there always." End quote. However, a little over a year later, it seemed that things between Lauren and Gabriel had shifted, or maybe Lauren was just starting to be honest with people about it, because according to her friends and family, Lauren and Gabriel had been on again and off again for a while in a very toxic way. On April 18th, 2020, Lauren was texting with her sister, Lindsay, about Gabriel, and she said, quote, "It sucks because I love him and I want to be with him, but we're not good for each other. We don't build each other up. It's so unhealthy. He's always miserable, and I'm tired of feeling like I'm the reason for it. I'm really starting to watch it implode in front of my eyes. I know it's over, and it makes me sad." End quote. Now, according to Lauren's brother, Jeffrey, Gabriel was also feeling disenchanted with the relationship. Because remember, Jeffrey is living with Victor and Anne. Jeffrey also works with Victor and Gabriel at the same company. He has a different partner. He doesn't directly work with them or drive into work with them every day, but he works at the same company, so obviously they're going to see each other, they're going to talk, etc. And apparently, Gabriel would tell Jeffrey that he didn't know if he could make things work with Lauren any longer. He said she was just too difficult. Gabriel and Lauren would fight and break up, but they always came back together, and maybe even they didn't understand why. Sometimes when she and Gabriel were on a break, Lauren would stay with a man she had an intimate relationship with, and his name was Carl Crow. Now, for some context into who this dude was, I'm going to play you a news clip. I cannot explain to you why the news reporters and anchors in this clip seem to be so unserious and so amused while reporting this story. At times, their performances border on parody, in my opinion. I don't know. Let me know what you think, because that's neither here or there. Let's watch it, and then we'll discuss.
And he was offering ice cream for a pretty penny.
But Cape Coral police say this guy's special Sunday was actually a lot of drugs. You're watching NBC2 News at 11. I'm Brenna White.
And I'm Peter Bush. Tonight, NBC2 is uncovering that Carl Crow is no stranger to drugs and crime. Earlier this year, he was arrested after teenager Kaylee Musso overdosed. Police say Crow was part of the group that dumped her body in a road.
NBC2's Jessica Babb shows us how even after her death, he didn't learn his lesson with the deadly substance.
Carl Crow was caught selling ice cream in an undercover bust. Police say that's code for meth. Police say they found tons of drugs and pills in his home, adding to the long list of serious crimes he's accused of committing.
I'm glad he was arrested.
Making money off meth.
And I saw about 4 police cruisers, lights flashing in that corner house.
Inside this home on Southwest 3rd Street in Cape Coral, police say Carl Crow was up to no good.
Unfortunately, he was decided making the poor decision to try to sell drugs in our city.
2 weeks ago, police say they went undercover when Crow did the deal selling them meth. but as part of an investigation, wasn't arrested.
Anybody selling those kinds of drugs, or any drugs really, is an offender, and we're after him.
Then Tuesday, with a search warrant, police hunted around his home,
A variety of drugs.
finding drugs like heroin, cocaine, meth, and plenty of pills. His inventory like a laundry list.
It looked like he had been at it for a while.
Police finding nearly 10 grand stashed away in a safe.
A lot of cash that really couldn't be explained.
That's when police made the arrest, Crow landing in cuffs.
Kind of drugs you're talking about, lead to big-time violence.
In fact, Crow was arrested a few months ago in connection to a death investigation. In April, 19-year-old Kaylee Musso died from an overdose, but her body found wrapped up in a sheet and duct tape on the side of a Cape Coral street. Crow charged for not reporting Musso's death, tampering with evidence, mishandling her remains. 4 others were arrested for their role.
Glad he's off the streets.
Tonight in jail for trafficking drugs.
I'm glad he's taken care of, so I hope he get a better neighbor.
We tried to talk with the person at his house, but when we knocked, they yelled through the door saying they didn't want to. In Cape Coral, Jessica Babb, NBC2.
That reporter, Jessica Babb, it took me out in that clip. I don't know what's happening. Am I the only one who's seeing? They kind of seem like they're giggling. It's like a very over dramatic thing, like kind of an SNL skit it reminded me of. But yes, the arrest they are discussing, it went down in October of 2020, just a few months after Lauren would go missing in June of 2020. And the young woman who died of an overdose, whose death Carl tried to cover up, that incident happened in April of 2020, just a few months before Lauren went missing. So he gets arrested for it a few months after she goes missing, and the incident happened a few months before she went missing. So we would kind of understand that at the point that Carl Crow was doing these things, he would know Lauren. She might even still be in contact with him. Now, Lauren had told her sister that Carl made her feel safe. And I mean, you saw him in the clip, like the picture of him. He's a big guy. He looks like physically he could keep you safe and protect you. But I don't think he would be the guy I'd choose to be spending my time with if I was trying to stay away from drugs and the darker side of life. Now, there are reports that Carl's apartment, where Lauren did spend a lot of time, was a big drug party house, and some girls would go there to have a good time, and then they would never be seen again, like poor 19-year-old Kaylee, who overdosed at his apartment, and instead of getting her help or calling the police, Carl and his buddies wrapped her up in a carpet and tried to hide her body on the side of the road. That didn't work out. Currently, at this time, Carl Crow is in prison. Thank God. But here's the thing. On May 22nd, 2020, Lauren terminated a pregnancy. There's no way to know whether the baby's father was Gabriel or Carl Crow, since Gabriel and Lauren were on and off. When Gabriel and Lauren were off, Lauren would spend time with Carl. Obviously, there was some overlap. And at the time that she was on again and off again with both of them, she got pregnant. But we do know that Lauren called her father Paul that day, the day she had the procedure done. She was upset and crying. According to Paul, Lauren was emotional because Gabriel had told her he would go with her that day to the procedure, and he had told her he would pay for it, but he didn't do either of those things. Now, my question would be, which I don't have an answer to, but maybe somebody who's listening to this does, or somebody knows Lauren and can let me know, did Gabriel know that the baby Lauren was carrying was potentially not his? Did he know about Carl Crow? If he did, it would make sense about, him not wanting to pay for it and not wanting to go. But if Lauren's claiming he had already agreed to pay for it and go with her, I'm assuming that he either knew about Carl Crow and knew the circumstances and still agreed to go with her and pay for it and be supportive with her and stay with her, or he didn't know that the baby could potentially be another man's and he agreed to pay for it and go with her. But then maybe he found out after he agreed to do those things that there was a potential the baby wasn't his. And that's why he said he didn't want to go and he didn't want to pay for it. Either way, we have this information that Gabriel did not go with her. He did not pay for it. And when he came home from work that day that she had the procedure, Lauren was sitting on the couch, obviously not feeling well. She asked him to bring her a bowl of soup, which then according to Paul Dumolo, who talked to his daughter Lauren, this caused Gabriel to beat Lauren. And Lauren sent Paul pictures of her injuries, and he described them, saying there was a big mark on her arm where it looked like she tried to block Gabriel's blows, like defensive wounds. There was also handprints and strangle marks on her neck, and the side of her body was scratched up. Now, Paul was furious, obviously. I don't think it matters when you're the father what the circumstances are. If somebody put their hands on your daughter, and now you want to put hands on them. So he wanted to travel from California, where he was living, to Florida. But remember, it's the pandemic. There's travel restrictions. It just wasn't possible at that time. Paul assumed that Lauren and Gabriel would be over at that point. A fair assumption. But as we know, in abusive and toxic relationships, it's really just not that easy. It's not just about leaving. Sometimes it's trauma bonded. Sometimes there's things like finances, situational things keeping you there. Either way, Gabriel and Lauren continued their relationship. And I think Paul said it in the Complicit podcast. He was like, I have no idea why you would want to be with somebody who would lay their hands on you. But, once again, if you've never been there, you don't understand. And Lauren and Gabriel, obviously, toxic on again, off again. They're breaking up. They're getting back together. I have a sneaking suspicion that if Gabriel did put his hands on Lauren that day, it was not the first time. Usually these things escalate. So the same day as Lauren's procedure, May 22nd, Lauren sent a Facebook message to a longtime friend, Erica. And Lauren told Erica that she needed help, that her boyfriend Gabriel had beaten her up pretty badly. She was scared. She needed to get away from him. Lauren had also spoken to her friend of 9 years, Christian, the day before. And Lauren at that time had expressed being upset about what she had to do, meaning, going in and terminating this pregnancy. And Christian said, quote, I know it was a very difficult decision for her. I remember feeling very skeptical because there was something that she wasn't saying, and I knew there was something, that there was a lot that she wasn't saying. As far as she had communicated with me, Gabby had left. I don't know to where and for exactly how long he was gone, but that he left, and she decided that that's what she wanted to do, and that that's what was best. And then within a few days, I think of her actually going to have the abortion, then he was back, end quote. So when they talk about Gabby sometimes, apparently this is what Lauren and her daughter and even some close friends would call Gabriel. They'd call him Gabby. It is worth mentioning that Lauren had known both her friends, Erica and Christian, for almost a decade. They'd been friends that she'd met and created bonds with during her recovery, as they were also in recovery. So they'd gotten to know her before she was in a relationship with Gabriel Pena, but neither of them had ever met Gabriel. So Erica would say, quote, I've never met her boyfriend Gabby, but she's told me good things about him, but also not so good things he did. Every time it came to the bills needing to be paid, he would disappear and leave her stuck to figure it out on her own. She told me that, like she was stuck, she had nowhere to go. She had no money. Then I look on Messenger and I see this message from her that, he beat her up and that she's scared and she just wants out of this relationship. The only facts I know is that her boyfriend beat her up, end quote. Christian also said that even before this, she'd called Lauren once and Lauren was in the car, but Lauren wasn't acting like herself. She was being very short, giving one-word answers, and not long into this conversation, Lauren said she had to go. But as soon as they hung up, she was starting to text Christian, and according to Christian, in these texts, Lauren told her, hey, listen, I can't talk on the phone. I feel like I have to censor myself. And Christian said, quote, I said, are you talking about your boyfriend or who are you talking about? Her response was, he's everything. I didn't know if that was like a good thing or a bad thing. It was just weird. To me, she would post pictures on Facebook that like everything's great and the love of my life. And to me, it was a show. Whatever was really going on in that relationship and in their home life, I think that it was a show, end quote. And that brings me back to Lauren's Facebook presence and all the very nice things she said about her boyfriend, Gabriel Pena. But once again, I don't believe that in order to feel these things that you have to put them on social media. If you're putting them on social media, it's because you're trying to convince maybe not only everyone else out there, but yourself that things are good. Maybe it's this public declaration that also kind of keeps you hemmed in to this relationship, right? Because all those nice things she said about Gabriel, she could have just said them to him privately, within the privacy of their own home, within the privacy of their own relationship. She could have even said these things to her family. and they're shared friends. You know, like I appreciate my boyfriend Gabriel so much. He's so great. He's always been there for me. That would have been a great show of appreciation for her partner, but you do not have to put that stuff on social media. And when people are putting that stuff on social media a lot, it's usually because it's a facade. It's not really what's happening. And for whatever reason, the person posting these things, they want people to think that's what's happening, that they have a very good relationship. And there's a lot of psychological reasons for this. It's a phenomenon that I think we see a lot lately. And we have seen this in many, many true crime cases, right? We've seen husbands who have killed their wives, and you look at their Facebook presence and in their Facebook posts and pictures and things, it's just like, oh my God, I love my wife. She's the most amazing thing in the world. I love my wife so much. Posting happy snuggling pictures kissing, and then they go on to murder their wives. So it's like, just... It's not a sign of how things really are. It's a sign of how you want things to look. Social media is not true. It's how you want your personal life presented to the world, but it's not a genuine reflection of what your personal life actually is, which is one of the reasons social media is so damaging and harmful, but we're not here to talk about that today. So within a few days of having the abortion, Lauren's family members noticed she was acting differently, strangely, even erratically. On June 1st, 2020, Lauren Dumolo walked to her mother's apartment next to Four Freedoms Park, and shortly after this, she walked right back out. Now, she had left a note on the kitchen table, but the note was not addressed to her mother, Anne. It wasn't addressed to her mother's boyfriend, Victor, or even her brother, Jeffrey, all of these three people who lived in that apartment. This letter was addressed to Lauren's 5-year-old daughter, Michaela, and it was accompanied by a picture of Lauren and Michaela, and the letter read as follows, quote, Michaela, Mommy loves you so much. I'm sorry I wasn't the mom you deserve, but you mean the world to me. You're my only reason for life, and without you, I have no life. You're my heart and soul, and I'll always be with you even when I'm not. You're my angel, baby. And now I'll be your angel, always watching over you and always in your heart. I love you, Mom. End quote. I don't want to talk about what this letter could potentially mean just yet because there's so much context and information to follow, but I will come back to it at the end of this video. So some might think that that letter was concerning. And once again, like I said, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth in a little while, but I think you could look at it either way depending on whichever narrative you're landing on. But some people would say that this was a concerning letter, and this was not the only concerning behavior that Lauren exhibited that day, not by far. Later, Lauren's sister, Lindsay, called Lauren's other sister, Cassie, and asked if Cassie had spoken to Lauren at all that day because Lauren had called Lindsay, and what she had said caused Lindsay to worry. Reportedly, Lauren had called Lindsay and asked her sister to come pick her up because she said there was people after her and she was scared. Lindsay had been living in Cape Coral for a while, but when the pandemic hit, she moved in with her boyfriend, Matt, who lived about an hour away so they could quarantine together, so she wasn't very close by. And so that's why Lindsay started calling around, calling Cassie, calling Lauren's mom, just being like, hey, has anyone seen Lauren? Now, Cassie had not heard from Lauren on that day, so she and Lindsay, like I said, began to call everyone, trying to see if anybody had heard from Lauren. They called Anne and Victor, who lived right around the corner from Lauren, and they would see her on a more often and on a regular basis. Lauren would walk to the apartment, hang out there. She'd go to the park, maybe stop by the apartment on the way home. But Lauren was seeing her mother, Anne, and Victor and Jeffrey a lot more than she was seeing Cassie and Lindsay at that point. But according to Jeffrey, Lauren's brother, Lauren had been acting off for a little while. So when Cassie and Lindsay called Jeffrey that day, they're like, hey, Lauren's acting kind of weird. And he's like, yeah, she's been acting weird and it's getting pretty bad. Jeffrey told Lindsay that one day he was on his way to get coffee when he passed Lauren's apartment complex. He said he saw her sitting in the middle of the lawn in front of the apartment complex with her legs crossed as if she was meditating, but the maintenance team was mowing the lawn around her. So the way that Jeffrey kind of explained it is it was as if Lauren didn't really know where she was or what was happening around her, right? It was like she thought she was maybe at Four Freedoms Park meditating by the water like she would do every day, but she was actually in the apartment complex lawn. and they're trying to mow the lawn around her, and she just doesn't seem to be aware of what's happening, or that she was in their way, I guess, because then I feel like she would have gotten up and moved and been like, oh, my bad, I'll go meditate somewhere else. But she didn't do that. So another time when Jeffrey was driving by, he said Lauren ran over to his car and started aggressively banging on his car door. He said that Lauren was sweating, she was in a frenzy, and she was demanding to be let in, and this scared Jeffrey. Jeffrey told Lindsay that Lauren was not acting like herself, and he was actually kind of afraid of her. Cassie, who also didn't live in Cape Coral, she lived about 2 hours away, she has said that she feels none of the people who were close to Lauren, like geographically, who did live locally to her, like her mother and her mother's boyfriend, Victor, she didn't believe that they wanted to do anything about what was going on with Lauren because they just didn't want to deal with it. And like I said, the specific people Cassie is referring to at this point are obviously Lauren's boyfriend, Gabriel Pena, Lauren's mother, Anne, and Anne's boyfriend, Victor, who had known Lauren for quite some time, right? And he had developed what he would refer to as a stepfather type of relationship with her. Now, Lauren's sisters, Cassie and Lindsay, were very concerned. They were very concerned because no one could get in touch with her on June 1st. She'd left that letter, which could be kind of alarming. They'd been calling her, she wasn't picking up. No one they called had heard from her either, so Cassie called the Cape Coral police and tried to report Lauren missing. She was informed that Lauren hadn't been gone long enough to file a missing persons report. However, the police called Cassie back later, following up, and told her, listen, your sister's not missing. We found Lauren. She'd been at Four Freedoms Park, and the police had been called to the park by concerned bystanders because Lauren had been doing some very bizarre things. So for context, let me give you the lay of the land here. We have Four Freedoms Park on Tarpon Court, and then there's Bimini Basin. This is a natural water body connected to this river that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Actually, I'll attempt it, and all you Floridians can correct me, and that way I'll know the correct way to say it from now on. But the Caloosahatchee River? Caloosahatchee River? So the Bimini Basin is connected to the Caloosahatchee River via canals. And I'm not sure if you know this, but fun fact, Cape Coral, Florida, it's located in Lee County on the Gulf of Mexico. The city has over 400 miles of canals, which is bananas. Most of these are navigable, meaning like you can put boats and stuff in them, and some of them, a lot of them, have access to the Gulf of Mexico. So Four Freedoms Park is located on the north side of Bimini Basin, where there's like a sandy beach and a playground and recreation areas, but it is a non-swimming beach, right? The quality of the water in Bimini Basin is not great, to say the least.
But wait till I show you what's been floating in this water. Here's what Sanders Laboratories found. Fecal coliform. The test was done March 17th, 2017. The result, 108 CFU.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the threshold for the Department of Health to issue an advisory is around 60 for Enterococcus bacteria, which is a type of fecal coliform. So,
yeah, that's pretty gross. Like I said, the area is beautiful. The water looks great. You probably wouldn't want to swim in it. However, Lauren did swim in it. It appears she jumped in the water on the side opposite the park, swam towards the Four Freedoms Park beach area, and then people who were there enjoying a summer day at the park saw her do this, and they were like, "Oh, you don't want to be doing that." They called the police. Now, bystanders reported that when Lauren was pulled out of the water, she started talking about hearing voices and aliens, and then when the police arrived, she was afraid, jumped back into the water to get away from the police, and then they finally were able to retrieve her from the water, and she was still talking about like being chased, aliens, having people in pursuit of her, being afraid. That's why she jumped in the water, allegedly. And Lauren's father, Paul Dumolo, would speak to her about this incident afterwards, and here's what he had to say.
Before she said, I swam to the pond. I didn't swim out of the pond. She goes, because I was being followed. I was being chased.
Now, some people might be saying, Stephanie, this is obvious, right? This girl had a drug problem for a long time. She'd gotten clean, but then she relapsed. She got clean again. She's trying to get her daughter back. She's feeling hopeless at this point. She doesn't feel like that's going to happen. She relapsed. She's back on drugs. And this is why she's acting like this. But we know for a fact that at least at the time she jumped into Bimini Basin, Lauren was not using drugs. She was fighting to get custody of her daughter back. She'd been clean for 2 years, and part of this custody battle, part of her trying to show the court she was ready to take Michaela back, was that she was ordered to take regular drug tests, and she'd taken one earlier that day, and that drug test had come back positive for Suboxone and marijuana. Suboxone is a prescription medicine. It's used to treat opioid addiction by reducing withdrawal symptoms and cravings, and this medication acts on the same opioid receptors in the brain as other opioids like heroin. It's supposed to provide enough stimulation to make a person not crave their opioid of choice. So the fact that she's on Suboxone in general shows she's trying to, not go back to heroin, and there was no heroin or any other kind of drugs found in her system besides marijuana, which, not a drug. So if it wasn't drugs, then it appears Lauren was suffering from a potential mental health crisis on June 1st, 18 days before she would go missing. Now, at that time, when she was pulled out of Bimini Basin by the police, she was Baker Acted. Also known as the Florida Mental Health Act, the Baker Act allows for emergency detention and evaluation of people who are having mental health issues. A person can be admitted to a receiving facility under the Baker Act if they meet the following criteria. 1, there's a reason to believe they have a mental illness. 2, they have refused or are unable to determine if examination is necessary. 3, without care or treatment, they are likely to suffer from neglect or refuse to care for themselves. 4, there's a substantial likelihood that without care or treatment, the person will cause harm to themselves or others. So if the individual is found to have any mental health issues or they have a non-dangerous mental health issue, they will be released within 72 hours. So the Baker Act, they put them in so they can examine them further, right? Something's going on here. We might be having mental health issues. We're going to bring this person in, examine them, talk to them. And if it seems like everything's okay or you're not a danger to yourself or others, you'll be released within 3 days. So Lauren remained at the mental health facility for 8 days, which not a great sign. Now, according to her family members, Lauren had harmed herself while at the facility, and this is what extended her time. Apparently, she had hit her head on the floor, whether it was intentionally or accidentally, and she had to be brought to the hospital and treated and then brought back to the facility. Once back at the facility, it appears Lauren hurt herself again. She fell off a table or a chair and hit her head again. And once again, she was brought to the hospital and treated before returning to the facility where she was given antipsychotics. Now, Lauren's father, Paul, was her healthcare proxy, and he spoke to the psychiatrists who were treating his daughter. They told him that Lauren wasn't schizophrenic because signs of this would have shown up much earlier in her teens or 20s, and Paul and the rest of Lauren's family have confirmed that Lauren had not had any issues with mental health before this. So that's interesting to me because Paul is the one who talked to the psychiatrists. This is what they had reportedly told him. But while I'm thinking about it, I had to look up something on the computer really quick because I'm thinking, okay, when a person develops schizophrenia, you usually start to see those symptoms in their late teens and early 20s. But what else was Lauren struggling with in her teens and early 20s? A heroin addiction. So would you be able to see the signs of schizophrenia, the early signs of schizophrenia, when the person's also in the chokehold of an active and, daily heroin addiction? And so I looked it up. And it says drug use can sometimes mask or complicate the identification of schizophrenic symptoms. It largely depends on the type of drug being used. Now, when you look further, it says some substances, particularly sedatives or depressants like alcohol, benzos, or opioids, can temporarily reduce anxiety, agitation, or other symptoms of schizophrenia. This may make it harder to recognize the underlying disorder, especially if the individual is self-medicating to cope with symptoms like paranoia or auditory hallucinations. And that's very interesting. Now, if you go further and you look at heroin and what it does in maybe a developing schizophrenic brain, it says heroin and other opioids can potentially mask some symptoms of schizophrenia. It can have serious long-term consequences. Heroin is a powerful central nervous system depressant. Its sedative properties can reduce the intensity of certain schizophrenia symptoms, such as agitation or restlessness, because heroin induces a sense of calm and relaxation, which might mask symptoms like anxiety or hyperactivity. Also, the euphoric high of heroin can dull feelings of fear, sadness, paranoia, emotional distress that are common in schizophrenia. And heroin's calming effect on the brain can suppress outward displays of psychosis, such as disorganized behavior or speech, heightened emotional responses, physical agitation related to delusions or hallucinations. And it says this can make it harder for others to recognize this underlying condition, especially if the person is self-medicating. It also says that heroin users often experience a numbing effect, which can dampen emotional responses. In schizophrenia, this might temporarily reduce symptoms like emotional instability, which means you're having less dramatic swings in mood, anxiety or paranoia, which means a temporary sense of relief from intrusive thoughts. Now, it also says that schizophrenia is often associated with negative symptoms, such as a lack of motivation, reduced emotional expression, and social withdrawal. Heroin may further exacerbate these symptoms, making it hard to differentiate between the effects of the drug and the disorder, which can delay the diagnosis. When someone with schizophrenia uses heroin, the substance can complicate or delay a proper diagnosis. Healthcare providers might attribute certain symptoms to heroin use or withdrawal rather than schizophrenia, especially if the individual is not forthcoming about their mental health history. So they said, Lauren's family said that she was somebody who would not let you know if she had a problem. She didn't want to burden her family, her friends, the people she cared about with anything that she was personally going through in her life, right? She wouldn't be the person who would just be constantly complaining. She would take it all on her own. And so if she was having hallucinations or early schizophrenic sort of experiences, she may have attributed that to her heroin use as well. And if she thought that there was anything else to it, she may have been like, well, I can handle this myself, I'll figure it out, and not told her family or friends about it. So there is a potential. I'm just going to say this. You can disagree with me or agree with me, but there is a potential that Lauren may have been schizophrenic, but because of her heroin use from the time she was, probably 18 or 19, and honestly ongoing until about 2018, which was 2 years before she went missing and 2 years before she started having these issues, the getting off of heroin could have allowed her symptoms to start showing themselves. So Paul Dumolo asked the doctors, could this possibly have something to do with Lauren's procedure, her decision to terminate her pregnancy, which had happened, not long before? And he was told that it could possibly have something to do with a postpartum chemical imbalance that had hit Lauren in the wake of her procedure a few weeks prior. So Lauren was released with a prescription for antipsychotics, and the medical staff at the Park Royal Hospital in Fort Myers determined that a chemical imbalance had caused a temporary psychosis as a result of the abortion procedure that she'd had on May 22nd. Now, Lauren did drop this prescription off at a pharmacy, but it was never picked up. According to Lauren's Aunt Sue is Anne's sister, Lauren's boyfriend Gabriel was supposed to pick up the medication. He'd even asked his friend and Lauren's mother's boyfriend Victor for the money to pay for the prescription, which he was given, but Lauren never did get that medication, which is a problem. Aunt Sue also had some insight into what had happened at Four Freedoms Park on June 1st. She talked to Lauren after Lauren was released, and Lauren told her aunt that she'd been hearing voices, that they were telling her the world was going to implode unless she took her own life. Now, Lauren said that she didn't want to die, but she had felt that in order to save the world, she would have to. Lauren acknowledged to Aunt Sue, I know this sounds crazy. In hindsight, I know that it doesn't make any sense, but you have to understand, at the time, it did. So I'm going to address this really quickly. Do I think that Lauren Dumolo took her own life? I do not, because if she had, I feel like her body would have been found by now, right? The fact that she hasn't been found leads me to believe she encountered foul play. Somebody did this to her, and her body, her remains, were hidden very well, which is not something somebody who takes their own life usually has the thought process to do. They're not thinking I hope nobody ever finds my body. Do I think that she was struggling from some mental health issues that made her an easier target, an easier victim? Yes, I do. So after Lauren's release, she seemed to be okay again. On June 13th, 2020, Lauren and her boyfriend Gabriel went to the beach with Lauren's sister Cassie and her 2 children. And according to Cassie, it was a really good day. Lauren seemed like her old self. Lauren and Gabriel seemed like they were on better footing. They were doing well. Cassie said, quote, "I had driven from my residence to hers and I met up with her and Gabriel and I picked them up and we went to the beach that day and we actually just had like a really good day." And Lauren and Gabriel that day were like hugging and kissing and dancing and like life was just good. I know that Lauren and Gabriel's relationship was very up and down, probably not the happiest relationship, but like not all relationships are rainbows and butterflies, you know? Like you have your trials and tribulations, but that's just a relationship. And I've only met Gabby twice. I never really judged him in any way because I don't know him. She always said that he treated her well. I mean, I will say, like they were on again, off again. I'm not just blaming Gabby for like an unhealthy relationship. Lauren can be a lot to handle. Sometimes that day, Lauren was like, yeah, we're good. And like I said, they were hugging and kissing and dancing, and I had no reason to ever believe that they weren't. When I left that day, I felt really good about where she was, end quote. So that day at the beach, Lauren laughed, built sandcastles with her niece and nephew, and when she and Cassie said goodbye, Lauren promised that she was okay. And Cassie said, quote, "She kept saying, 'I'm not crazy. Something bad is going to happen.' I offered to have her stay with me, but she promised she would be okay," end quote. I don't know if maybe you can really say somebody's okay when they're like, "Listen, I'm not crazy. I just have this feeling that something bad's going to happen," very shortly after they've been released from a mental health facility and they've been placed on antipsychotic medication. The fact that they're still feeling these intrusive thoughts, like something bad's going to happen. I don't know what, I don't know when, but I just feel this impending sense of doom. It's not a good sign for mental health. But the following day on June 14th, Lauren called her sister, Lindsay, at 6 a.m. And obviously, Lindsay was worried because she said Lauren never called her that early. Lindsay said, quote, "I was like, Lauren's calling me. This is odd." Turned over, answered it, and I said, "Lauren, are you doing okay? What's going on? What's up? It's earlier. Are you all right?" And she's like, "Yeah, Lindsay, but like, are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. What's going on?" "Oh, nothing. I just wanted to see how you were doing." I said, "I'm good." And then I threw it back and forth. It was a little bit of, "Are you good?" "Yeah, I'm good." I never understood why she called me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And literally, that was the last time I talked to her. So I really wish I would have asked her better questions, end quote. On June 15th, 2000, Gabriel Pena reached out to Paul Dumolo, claiming he'd gotten home from work that night and Lauren was having another episode. She was talking about aliens, the devil, people listening to her, people watching her, people being after her. So Paul had Gabriel put Lauren on the phone, and she told him she didn't know what was going on, but something was wrong. Once again, she's having these intrusive thoughts, this impending sense of doom. Lauren said that she and Gabriel had been having problems. He would leave for days at a time and then come back to work things out with her. Lauren was crying. She told her father that something was going on. She just didn't know what. And then she said it was as if somebody had given her something. Now, at that point, Paul Dumolo claims that Gabriel snatched the phone from Lauren's hand. And after this, Gabriel called the police, which resulted in Lauren being Baker Acted again and being held on a 72-hour involuntary hold. So this is the second time she's been placed in the mental health facility. And Lauren would be released within that 72 hours. So obviously they determined that whatever was going on with her was not a danger to herself or others. She was released from the facility on the morning of June 18th, 2020. At that time, she got a lift from the facility to her apartment. And when I say a lift, I don't mean like somebody gave her a ride. I mean like a lift, L-Y-F-T. And then again, she got to her apartment. She went right back out again on foot to start applying for jobs. Now, Lauren had been consistently working 2 jobs, but remember, she'd lost the first one due to the pandemic and the lockdowns. I believe she was serving tables. And then the second one she lost after being admitted to the psychiatric facility, more than once, missing too much work. That first time she was there for 8 days, I believe. So obviously she was missing shifts. She got fired. So surveillance cameras captured the last known footage of Lauren Dumolo at a Speedway gas station less than half a mile away from her apartment. This was around 11:30 a.m. on June 18th. You can see Lauren talking to the clerk and getting an application and then leaving.
June 18th, 2020. This is the last known video of Lauren, dropping off an application at a gas station about a half-mile from her apartment on Coronado Parkway.
Later that day, around 6:30 p.m., Lauren spoke to her sister, Cassie, for about 4.5 minutes.
I spoke with her around 6:30 p.m. on the 18th. She had just been released from a mental health facility. This was her second hold that month. Things were she wasn't okay.
Her sister, Cassie, wanted to help her out, get her back on her feet. She offered up a place to stay, even help her work through the process of unemployment.
That evening, she just sounded tired. And she was like, "Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let's definitely talk tomorrow." And that was supposed to be on June 19th.
That call never happened.
Cassie said, quote, she was worried about not having a job to go back to because of all the time she'd missed this month dealing with her mental health. I assured her we would talk on the 19th and we would set her up with unemployment and that she would be better off taking the much-needed break from work and responsibilities to focus on getting her mental health under control. It was the height of the pandemic and unemployment was throwing money out like confetti. It would have been the ideal time for her to take a break, end quote. And I 100,000,000% agree. First of all, the COVID-19 pandemic was emotionally draining for everybody. I don't care who you were, whether you had struggled with mental health issues before, whether you were completely mentally healthy before. Is anybody completely mentally healthy? It doesn't matter. When that pandemic hit, it was like nobody knew what was going on in the world anymore. It was very confusing. People were losing their jobs. People couldn't pay their bills, couldn't pay their rent. And with Lauren struggling with clear mental health issues here, this would have been the perfect time to be like, hey, maybe for a few months I don't work. I take care of myself. I meditate more. I spend more time with my child. I do what I can to focus on me, and that way I can be stronger before I go back out into, the work field. But Lauren was also in a fight for custody for her child. And she didn't, I believe, and this is what I'm just feeling, that she didn't want to go to the judge and be like, oh, hey, I'm on unemployment. Even in the COVID-19 pandemic, she still wanted to show that she could be responsible, that she could hold down a job, that she could financially support her child who she desperately wanted back. So obviously there was a huge battle within Lauren. Do I take care of myself, take a break, take a beat, and risk looking like I can't take care of Michaela because I am having mental health struggles and I can't hold a job? Or do I just push through this and handle it myself like she always had? So this is where things become less clear in the timeline. And it's very difficult to distinguish whether Lauren went missing on the evening of the 18th, at some point after this phone call with her sister, or on the following day, the 19th. Now, according to her boyfriend, Gabriel Pena, he claims he saw Lauren on the morning of Friday, June 19, 2020. He claims that Lauren was in bed sleeping as he was leaving for work that morning around 6:30 a.m. He kissed her goodbye. He let her sleep. Now, remember earlier in this video, I said that Lauren's normal daily routine started with a walk to 4 Freedoms Park in the morning so she could meditate by the water. And according to a source who had wanted to remain anonymous, Lauren was seen on the morning of the 19th after Gabriel left for work around 8:30 a.m., walking away from 4 Freedoms Park back in the direction of her apartment. So kind of an assumption that she had gone to the park for her normal daily walk and meditation and that she was going back home. We're going to come back to this anonymous source in a bit, so just put a pin in it for now. When Gabriel returned home from work that evening, he claimed that Lauren was not home, and he called her father Paul around 10 p.m. to inform him of this. Now, I find it odd and very hard to believe that someone's workday would start at 6:30 in the morning and not end until almost 10 p.m., especially when that job includes removing and laying flooring, because you'd assume this sort of work would be happening at people's homes, offices, businesses, and having someone in your home or business outside of regular work hours doesn't seem very common. But maybe there was like a longer commute. Maybe the site that he was working at that day was a few hours away. I don't know. These details, which I'm sure the police know, if they don't know and they didn't ask, that's going to be something they need to answer for. But I'm sure the police do know this. These details are very important, right? Where did Gabriel work that day? What time would he have had to have been there? So would leaving at 6:30 a.m. make sense for where he ended up working that day? Do we know for a fact he left at 6:30 a.m.? Do you have cell phone data showing that? Do you have surveillance cameras showing that he left at that time? Because what Gabriel would usually do is he would leave Lauren and his apartment on foot. He'd walk over to Victor and Ann's apartment, just like a 6-minute walk by the park. And then Victor and Gabriel would drive their work van, which was parked at Victor's apartment, to work together, to their job site together. So right off the bat, I was a bit suspicious of this timeline for Gabriel. Like, he left work at 6:30 in the morning, and then he didn't get home until 10 p.m. And then he's calling Lauren's father, Paul, and being like, well, Lauren's not home. Right off the bat, I was a little like, this is kind of weird. And outside of this anonymous source who claims he saw Lauren walking home on the morning of 19th, Gabriel Pena is technically the last person who saw Lauren before she disappeared, even though she ceased contact with any of her friends and family the night before. Like, nobody had heard from her since June 18th. Gabriel Pena and this anonymous person are the only people who claim to have seen her on the 19th. So Paul Dumolo was not initially concerned. He's like, it's 10 o'clock, whatever. He thought maybe Lauren had just gone to the store, or maybe she had gone to visit her mother, Anne, who lived close by, where Lauren would often walk to and hang out. But since his daughter went missing, Paul has done his own investigation, and he discovered that there were a few places Lauren would go sometimes when she and Gabriel were not having a good night. So there was a 7-Eleven across the street from her apartment, and the staff there reportedly told Paul that Lauren would go there a lot at night and sort of just vent about her boyfriend and their bad toxic relationship, which she said would sometimes turn abusive, both physically and verbally. There was also a nearby Publix that Lauren frequented, and the employees there told Paul that she would come in, she would do the same, kind of vent about her relationship, she would talk to them in a low voice, and she'd look over her shoulder to make sure no one was watching her or listening to her. Now, Lauren would tell the folks at Publix much of the same. She was in a bad relationship, a bad situation. She wanted to get out of it. Lauren made statements that Gabriel was controlling. If she was going to go out, he would take her makeup or hide clothes that he didn't want her to wear. There were even times when he would turn off the Wi-Fi so that Lauren couldn't use her phone. Because, listen, Lauren had a cell phone, but she didn't have a plan on it. She used the cell phone on Wi-Fi, and then she would message people through apps like Facebook. You can even call people through these apps. So she didn't need a cell phone plan. Paul Dumolo said that in hindsight, he felt the call from Gabriel was strange because Paul lived in California. So if Lauren was missing or hadn't come home and Gabriel was genuinely worried and genuinely wanted to find out where she was, why would he not have called family members who lived locally or close by, like Lauren's siblings or her mother? And it appears, at least according to the official narrative that we're getting from Lauren's friends and family, Gabriel never called Anne that night. And remember, he knew Anne well. He used to live with her. He's besties with her boyfriend, work besties with her boyfriend. And he never called there to see if Lauren was there visiting or if Anne or Victor had heard from Lauren. So if Lauren didn't come home and you're calling Paul like, hey, your daughter didn't come home, why didn't you call Lauren's mother and be like, hey, is Lauren there by any chance? Like, if you really didn't know where she was, wouldn't that be the first place you would call, the first place you would start? This is alleged. Maybe Gabriel did call Anne and Victor, and that just hasn't been reported. But according to Paul Dumolo, he didn't. So Paul had suggested to Gabriel that he call Anne and Victor to see if Lauren was there, but like I said, allegedly, Gabriel never did this. Additionally, a maintenance man who worked at Lauren's apartment complex and various other complexes in the area, including Lauren's mother's apartment complex, he claimed he spoke to Lauren on June 18th. He said that she was asking him if he knew of any cheap apartments in the area because she needed to get out of a bad situation. Now, when Lauren's family heard this, they felt it was odd because not only had Lauren paid her rent in full just recently, but the apartment was in her name. So even though both she and Gabriel lived there, it was in Lauren's name. So she was trying to get away from Gabriel. Would she have left the apartment that was in her name? Would she have told them she was leaving? Did she have a lease? How would this have worked logistically? Now, as it turns out, the anonymous source who claimed he saw Lauren walking home from the park at 8:30 a.m. Friday morning, June 19th, this was the very same maintenance man who claimed he talked to Lauren about available apartments in the area. There's more about this individual, but we will once again put a pin in him and return to it later on. So on Saturday, June 20th, 2020, Paul Dumolo called Gabriel. And he was like, hey, did Lauren come back last night? You said she didn't come home. Did she ever come home? Gabriel told Paul that Lauren had not come home, and he said when he'd left for work that morning, she was still not there, but he would call Paul later when he got done with work and update him. That day, Lauren's sister Cassie called the police and asked them to perform a wellness check on Lauren, and a police officer was sent out to Lauren's apartment. But this officer called Paul Dumolo, Lauren's dad, and said that no one was answering the door. This police officer also said she thought she saw someone inside looking through the blinds, and Paul Dumolo was like, hey, kick the door down. But the police officer was like, no, we can't. There's no probable cause. I can't just be kicking people's doors down. So at 5 p.m. that night, Paul called Gabriel and asked, hey, did you get home from work yet? Is there any news? Have you heard from Lauren? What's going on? Gabriel said he still had not heard from Lauren, but he'd gone around town looking for her in a few places. The next day was Sunday, June 21st, Father's Day. And when Paul Dumolo did not get a call from Lauren, he called Gabriel again, who once again said he hadn't heard from Lauren. That same day, Cassie called both Gabriel and Ann's boyfriend, Victor, and she basically begged them to file a missing persons report because Gabriel hadn't done that. She also got into a little bit of an argument with her mother, Ann, and Victor, because Cassie had asked them, have you guys looked everywhere for Lauren? Did you check bathrooms, closets? Obviously, Cassie's concerned. It's been days now that she hasn't heard from Lauren. And according to Cassie, Victor and Ann did not appear to be taking this situation that seriously. And Victor even made a joke saying, yeah, we checked everywhere, even the refrigerator, making light of it. Because she's like, did you check closets? Did you check bathrooms? He's like, yeah, we even checked the refrigerator, kind of being like a dick. So Gabriel Pena would eventually report Lauren Dumolo missing to the police. Eventually.
Paul says he told Gabriel to file a missing persons report with Cape Coral Police. He did, 48 hours later on June 21st. Due to an unfortunate clerical error, major crimes investigators weren't even aware of her case until June 24th.
Yes, that put us behind the 8 ball, but I think that once it was assigned to them, they really did hit the ground running, and I commend them for that.
Now, I love when the authorities cite a clerical error when they mess up. I actually hate it. I was being sarcastic. I don't know if you could tell. I hate it. So remember the case of another young woman who also had the name of Lauren Johansson. I'll link the videos below if you haven't seen them. But Lauren Johansson also became the victim of an unfortunate clerical error that allowed her abusive boyfriend to leave a Nashville jail with no bond conditions. Bryson Rivers, that piece of shit coward, had been in jail because he had beaten Lauren within an inch of her life in a car. And when he got out of jail, the first thing he did was he found Lauren and he murdered her. So, clerical error. With Lauren Dumolo, we have no information about what this clerical error was, how it was made, or who dropped the ball. Now, NBC2 did reach out to the Cape Coral Police Department, kind of asking, what's the deal here? And they received this response, quote, due to a clerical error in filing the missing persons report, major crimes investigators were not made aware of her case immediately. Once the error was corrected on June 24th, the police sent out the alert to media partners, end quote. Thanks for clearing it up. Thanks for giving us all the details. But between Gabriel Pena not reporting Lauren missing for several days and this clerical error, no one in law enforcement even knew who Lauren was until that crucial 48-hour time period in a missing persons case had come and gone. Now, in the missing persons report, Gabriel said that Lauren was not answering her phone, and he didn't know where she was, but she had left for days before with no contact. And so I guess he's trying to, in my opinion, kind of trying to set a narrative yeah, she's been, out of contact for a few days, but she's done this before. Gabriel stated that Lauren was not on any medication. She had not made any statements of wanting to hurt herself or others, but he did clarify that he was filing the missing persons report because Lauren's father, Paul, had asked him to. Now, I think the whole situation is weird, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when you consider where certain items of Lauren's would be located and the time period in which they would be located. We're going to talk about all of that next time, but I want to specifically give you a little hint as to some of these things that were found that belonged to Lauren that just doesn't make any sense if she had taken off and left on her own. For instance, her cell phone was located in the apartment that she shared with Gabriel Pena. The apartment that Gabriel Pena was technically, I believe, staying in while Lauren was missing. So if he's calling her phone, she's not answering. Would you not hear it ringing in the apartment? Would you not? I mean, or vibrating or something? Or would you not see it? Because according to what we're going to talk about in this next video, it wasn't like the phone was, sort of hidden. It definitely seemed as if Gabriel Pena either had the phone on him, had been carrying it around with him, or he knew exactly in Lauren's apartment that phone was located. So that's interesting. Now, I would like to sort of take a beat here and say that I know there's a lot of people that believe Gabriel Pena is responsible for Lauren's disappearance. A lot of people, because like I said, I've talked to people who live in Cape Coral. If you are watching this, you know who you are. We talked about this in Rhode Island a few weeks ago. A lot of people think he's responsible or involved in some way, and I don't necessarily disagree. However, there's just so many other things that could have happened to Lauren that when we get into the theories section of this case, we're going to have to really be honest with ourselves and with the evidence and the information and say, like, maybe Gabriel was a shitty person, allegedly. Maybe he wasn't the best boyfriend. Maybe he had some nefarious intentions. But also maybe he wasn't responsible for this, or at least wholly responsible for this. We definitely have to give him the benefit of the doubt, considering how many theories and potential sort of bad situations Lauren could have encountered that led her to be missing today. But we're going to talk about all of that next time. I will not make you wait very long for this next video. I can promise you that when this video posts, Part 2 will be out 2 to 3 days tops because it's already written. I just have to record it, and I'm going to make sure that by the time I post this, the other video is already filmed and at least in editing. Okay, so it'll be pretty quick. So I'm not making you wait because I know that you hate to wait. I hate to wait, okay? I would piss myself off with the amount of time I make you guys wait between videos sometimes. I feel really bad about it. It just happens to be that I'm not super organized mentally or physically. I'm really good at writing things and researching things, but when it comes to organization in any way, shape, or form, not my strong suit, but I'm really trying to get better, and I hope you guys are, going to be, well, you have been. You've been super patient with me. I just know you guys hate waiting, and I do too. We all are impatient. We all are impatient, and I will not make you wait very long for this at all. So don't forget to like the video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe. I'll see you very soon. Bye.